Hello. We are live at the Great Falls Area Chamber of Commerce here in the beautiful D.A. Davidson complex. And the cool thing is, John, it's a little warmer today, so that's a great thing. So we have a special knowledge drop today. Not that they're all not special, but we're with John Faulkner. What's your position at the airport?
I'm the airport director.
Airport director. And we're going to talk about an initiative called the Low Cost Airfare Initiative and what that is. But before we get started, I want to thank Benefis for sponsoring this. Benefis knows that affordable airfare impacts the community, especially when they're trying to recruit providers and skilled specialists. So Benefis is one of the largest employers in Cascade County. They employ 3,400 folks and 400 providers and close to 1,000 nurses. So thank you, Benefis, for your sponsorship here. So John, what is the Low Cost Airfare Initiative?
Yeah, so federal law prohibits airports from giving financial incentives for airlines. And because of the long-term consolidation of airlines, really since 9/11, communities that need air service have put together these community incentives to go out and guarantee air service in their community for the first 2 years they operate. And so this is our community effort to bring more air service into our community. And every Montana community has one, and small airports across the country have them. And so this is our tool. This is how we can go out and recruit new service into our community the way we do it. And so, our current goal right now is to attract ultra low cost service. I may remember we had Frontier for about 3 years. We're looking to bring in another ultra low cost carrier. The most likely candidate, we have the biggest incentive for California service because we did get a matching grant a couple years ago. And so we pretty much match 40% community versus 60% grant to bring in a new carrier if we can get them to go to either Dallas or to California.
So Dallas or any part of California?
Yes.
Doesn't matter where?
Right.
Okay, so San Francisco, LA, any of the LA airports?
Any of the LA airports. LA is by far the largest market that's unserved from Great Falls. There's just about 14 to 18 people per day traveling between Great Falls and LA and Great Falls. So that is by far the largest market that has no direct service.
Okay, so you kind of explained why it's important, but let's talk a little bit about how does an airline choose? So I was part of airline speed dating, which we don't have to go over, but it's an interesting process. How does United say it's very important that we go to Great Falls and create a flight to California or Delta or whoever? I don't want to single anybody out, but how do they choose? Money is part of it, that guarantee, but what else goes into that? The
biggest thing is they're incredibly risk adverse because just even the United flight that we had 10 years ago when it started to Chicago, it ran for 10 weeks and it ran twice a week. That cost the airline nearly $2 million just for those few flights.
Cost United.
Cost United to run that flight. That was their hard cost. So that gives you an idea of the scale of their investment in your community. So they're incredibly risk adverse, particularly right now because we're in a shortage of pilots, we're in a shortage of planes, we're frankly in a shortage of airlines. You might have heard Spirit's in bankruptcy, and will likely be liquidated, most people think. So, I mean, we're in this massive shortage of air service, and so they're incredibly risk adverse. And the biggest thing they're looking for to start service in a small community is there a financial guarantee? Is that community saying to me they want me so badly that they're willing to guarantee it? That's number one, right? I mean, you wouldn't go down and buy a brand new SUV, we know what those cost now, right? And walk out without a warranty. You want to know you're taken care of.
I hope you wouldn't. But
right? I hope nobody is. But you want to know you're taken care of for the first couple of years. It's going to work. It's going to do what you bought it for. Same thing with the airlines. They want to see that it's going to work. And so beyond that, the biggest thing that they're looking for to bring service into the community is growth. They want to see population growth or visitation growth or economic growth. And so that's where we're at a disadvantage to a lot of other communities is we don't really have those three things. Our visitation is kind of stagnant in the summertime because we're short on hotel rooms in the summer.
More coming, but currently
right.
short. Yep.
Our population growth is now below 1970. And then on top of that, we're the slowest growing economic community of the big communities in Montana. And so, we're at a disadvantage on those things. And so that's what is so hard when we sit down with an airline and talk about something new. I think I shared with you, airfares in Great Falls last year were lower than they were 20 years prior.
Right.
And then the amount of traffic, we've had 500 people a day basically traveling out of the airport now for 30, 40 years. So the total revenue number in Great Falls for air service has been unchanged in that period. And so, I mean, we really have a stagnant line, and that's one of the things we've got to break out of.
Wow. Okay, so a family of 4 wants to fly out of Great Falls. They have other options in the state.
Sure.
What other costs might they not consider?
So, I mean, obviously time is the biggest thing that none of us
Right.
consider. We're all guilty of it, right? We basically value our time at nothing. So I'm going to skip that one. People can
Okay.
decide what they're worth on their own.
Hopefully a lot, but I get it.
But AAA says that it costs you 76 cents per mile to run your vehicle between gas, new tires, oil changes, the whole shebang, right?
So don't tell people to go try to get their employers to pay more for their mileage. Just
Right.
say that. That's not what he's saying.
Sorry,
That's
employers.
AAA.
That's AAA's number last year. So you've got that on, that add-on. And then the price of parking. You can park up at Great Falls and Value Park for $25 a week. There's not a better weekly pricing rate in the entire state. And so when you really factor in just those 2 components, you're looking at $350 to go down to Bozeman and pay for that mileage, and then pay on top of that, the parking fee. And then I know I've had friends. My daughter played in a volleyball tournament out of state last year. Several of the players drove down to catch a flight out of Bozeman. They got stuck. If it's weather related, the airline doesn't have to pay for your hotel. So you've got to imagine what those rates are down there on short notice. And then on top of that, they missed half the tournament. They paid a lot of money to play in. And so, that's another cost too. And not to mention that 3-hour drive. It's a time-consuming drive. So, and I'm not asking anybody to break the bank. I mean, we all have to be responsible for our financial decisions. All I'm saying is keep it all in mind when you're booking it, because this is local jobs, just like retail, like buying your car, like everything else. You're keeping that money local by flying out of Great Falls.
So, and if you do fly out of Great Falls, besides keeping the money local, that, just so I'm understanding, that could increase the passengers per day, which could make us more attractive to airlines.
For
By
sure.
flying out of here, we actually could decrease price. Kind of.
Yeah, well, no,
Right?
directly.
Directly.
Where we are right now, I think everyone knows the 50-seat jets are gone, right?
Right.
I mean, they're completely gone.
And some people are happy, taller people are happy.
Yeah, they're not great planes. I'm not going to
Right.
tell you that. But if you look at just our summer, we have United now flies 2 Airbuses a day versus they used to have up to 4 50-seat jets a day. So there's less total flights going out.
Okay.
When you bring in a mainline airplane, that plane has a middle seat. None of our daily flights today in Great Falls have middle seats. Middle seats are the cheapest seats on the plane. So if we can grow out of the regional jet, like many of the other Montana airports have, into a mainline jet, right away you get a discount because there's more seats behind the wing, there's more seats by the bathroom, and there's more middle seats, which are the discounted seat on the airplane. So just by growing a little bit, that 10, 20%, when we start bringing in mainline aircraft, that is going to reduce the fare. But like I said, demand has been stagnant at that 500 seats for 20, 30 years. And so we're kind of locked into that regional jet market. And so, just increasing the amount of traffic slightly is going to have a downward effect on things. And we estimate the best numbers we can find are the market leaks about 30% of its traffic to
When you
other
mean
areas.
leak, that means passengers leave Great Falls to go to a different airport.
Yes, so somebody with a Great Falls credit card is buying a ticket that originates in another town. So they're leaking out. Now, every airport has leakage. You're going to have 20, 10, maybe even 20% no matter what you do. Just because people are, they're living at college away and that credit card's in Great Falls, something like that. You're going to have that kind of leakage. But our leakage is above that, well above that. And so that traffic leaking out is preventing us from making that next phase of traffic and getting us into bigger planes, getting more destinations.
Great, okay. So I'm understanding it a little bit. We need people from Great Falls, the community, to try to fly out of Great Falls to decrease the prices so then we can sell to other airlines the possibility of us getting more connections, which then more people would fly out of Great Falls to decrease the prices to get more connect. So it just builds.
It does, and it builds exponentially, right? Because we're competing for travelers that are over in Lincoln or over in Lewistown.
Or Canada, maybe?
Or Canada, for sure. When Canadian dollar was at par, we had 30% of our flights were Canadians. And so, the lower we can bring that fare down, the more that fare comes down, the more people we're tacking on from outside the community. In addition, when we had Frontier, that flight flew 70% inbound. So that's brand new money coming into our community. It's going to get spent down at Bighorn. It's going to get spent, at restaurants. They're going to buy bear spray, everything people buy when they come to Montana. And so that's the power of it. It's exponential growth. Whenever you add a new market or a new airline, you get people you weren't planning on getting.
Right, and when those folks come to visit, if they have an accident, they can visit Benefis and they'll take care of you, right? Because we have, what would I say, over 1,000 or close to 1,000 nurses that are there for you in multiple locations in Great Falls. We don't hope they get hurt when they come to visit us, but if they do, they can go visit Benefis.
Absolutely they can.
Right. So do we have any questions online? We have a few questions online. We'll take some questions online.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we did get a question. For bringing a low-cost air to Great Falls, is there a savings for them on airport and gate fees?
Yeah, so the FAA allows us to rebate the airline fees for 2 years max. Okay. And you don't have to. There's no requirement for it. But we have always done that. Since I've been here, which will be coming up on 15 years, we have always said, if you bring in a new flight, you're free for 2 years, so you don't pay any rent. So we do that automatically. Even after that 2 years is up, we have the lowest fees almost every single year in Montana for the airlines. Our landing fee is the lowest in the state, has been for 3 or 4 years now. And even then, we're only second lowest after that. Our terminal rent is literally a fraction of what it is in some of the other markets. So we're already pushing down on those costs and making it incredibly competitive. Every time I talk to the airlines about our costs, they're like, wow, that's great. That's never been an impediment.
I've been a couple of those phone calls and conversations, and yeah, they're surprised.
And one other thing I'd point out on that, I think it's a misconception, the airport gets $0 from the ticket sale. Zero. None of that money comes to us, right? All of the airport's revenues are coming from rental cars, from parking, from food you buy, the services that are tacked around air service. And so we don't benefit at all from ticket prices. And we want the lowest ticket prices that will sustain air service because we want more traffic.
Right.
So that's our motivation.
Okay. So I got to follow up on that. If I'm an airline, I come in and start a new route, I'm hiring local ticket gate agents. I'm hiring local folks to service the airplane throughout the day. I'm hiring more grounds crew. Is that what they're doing?
Dozens.
Is that some? Okay,
yeah,
so there's some workforce involved there.
Well, and the biggest expense they have is fuel, right? And so, we're Holman Aviation sells all the aviation fuel. So, that's a local business that benefits from all that aviation fuel sales. The gate fees and everything that they're paying for their for us are a tiny component of what gets spent in the community. Much more of it is things like, oh, we need some extra Coke or something because we've got a flight delay, and so they go buy that at Sam's Club, that type of thing. So there's a lot that happens locally because we have that local service.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah, we got another one. What would be a transfer airport? Salt Lake City, Denver, Seattle?
I assume where would the flight go is the question there.
I think so.
So really, the what we're looking for right now is ultra low cost carriers. They operate differently. Think of Allegiant. This is going to be point to point service. Okay. Now we are working with a carrier, an ultra low cost carrier that does allow connections, and that would be a really powerful tool. They're a newer airline. As they build up their network, there'll be connecting opportunities. But we've got to start out right now point to point. We've got to look at what market, like when Frontier was here, it was Denver. And they increased the Denver traffic substantially. We added about 10 passengers a day when they were here. And that never really came back down. A lot of that traffic has continued to be in that Denver city pair. And so, LA would be the most likely market, like I said. If we get that LA service again, like we had for 1 year with Allegiant, that's going to pop that LA number. And a lot of that's going to be inbound. We're going to be bringing a lot of people to the community from these other communities we get service to.
But a California market, I could see that tourism jumping on that to get Californians up to visit Montana, and vice versa. We utilizing it to go to Disneyland and all the things that California has to offer us. It could be a win-win for both states and both communities.
It's huge. When you think about this plane is likely to be 120 seats to 160 seats a day. So let's say they only start 3 times a week. That's hundreds of additional seats. Maybe 70% inbound, at least 60% inbound, and so we're going to see, quite a bit of visitation just entering the state through this new route, like we did when we had Denver.
Okay. Other questions?
We had one last question for right now. Do enough people travel to Bozeman to recoup?
So, is there enough people leaving Great Falls, and I don't know if you'll know this answer, enough people leaving Great Falls to Bozeman that if we had our own flight, that would make up, could fill it up with just that?
Probably not, because they're leaving for a bunch of reasons, right? They're meeting family down there, or they have a shopping trip they need to make, that type of thing. There's no way to really know that for sure. The only data that's available on this is that credit card data I talked about. So all we know is a Great Falls address credit card used a ticket that originated in Bozeman. That may be a kid at college going on spring break. Or it could be just somebody that got a better deal and drove down there and flew out. So, that's kind of the wrong way to look at it. What we know is the true size of our market is about 20 to 30% bigger. And so the more service we can add in, the more we're going to capture that. It could be time of day, it could be the time of week. Legion only flies certain days, so some people travel down to catch a Legion at a different airport. Anything we do to bolster the size of that market allows more service to be added. And so we're right now about 180,000 boardings a year. If we can get to like 300,000 boardings a year, that's kind of that magical number where the airlines have to upgauge the aircraft to serve the market. It doesn't make sense to add a fifth or sixth flight a day to a market. It makes sense to add a new plane, a bigger plane, or consider a different hub. So that's kind of the magic number when you really see things start to snowball. And you see that throughout the state. Missoula, Kalispell, they're now about 500,000 boardings per year, and so additional routes are coming into those communities because the size of the market dictates that.
So this isn't a question for them, it's a question I thought of. We've talked about it, but other folks might not know. So back in the day, 30 years ago or so, maybe it was not that long ago, there was flights amongst cities in Montana, not just a small one, and I can't remember the name of the airline that does that already in the Northeast.
Yep.
But it was like I thought there was
Big Sky Airlines.
Yeah. Big Sky, yeah. There was like a Butte to Billings and a Butte to Spokane, just really, really local. What are the chances a local service would come here to service Montana?
Highly improbable.
Okay.
When you look around all the states in the country, and there are a lot of states with a lot more population than we have, in-state service almost never works. The size of the plane has gotten too big. No one's building Metroliners anymore. The planes that used to fly, Saabs, Metroliners, you remember the 18-seaters, even some of them 9-seaters. Those planes are in the graveyard. They're gone.
Or they're flying in the Northeast Montana right now.
Well, right. There are a few. That's the Essential Air Service Program. It's a federally funded program that does that.
Okay.
So those fares are the price is dictated, and the time of service and everything, and it's bid out every few years.
Yeah, because people ask, those flights are so cheap.
Yeah.
How is that not translating? So it's federal dollars
money
supporting that.
Yes, and we can't qualify. Those are only available for communities that have no air service.
Okay.
And they have to go to your biggest city or the biggest nearby hub. And so it's a federal program that you have to qualify for. We can't qualify because we have commercial service. Butte actually has essential air service. That's one of the communities that has it. And so, but we don't qualify. And hopefully we'll never get there, right? Because, that would mean 1 or 2 flights a day.
Okay. And what are the chances? So if you think about Montana, let's just look up the I-15 corridor, right? We have Butte, Helena, Great Falls, all have airports. Mm-hmm. All have small airports.
Yep.
So what are the chances, not that you got to be correct, and no one bet on John's guess here, but with what you're saying, there's got to be not enough demand with Bozeman gaining a lot of these flights. Yep. So it just looks like maybe one of those will survive.
It's a struggle, right? So, as I said, the market is heading towards an 150, 160 seat plane. We have demand for 500 seats a day. So as the 50-seaters are gone, no one's buying heaps of 70-seaters.
Right.
That's an interim step that will likely go the way, right? Because we used to have 18-seaters, then we had 36-seaters, then we had 50-seaters. Chances are we're heading towards 150, 160-seat planes, which means 3 flights a day. That's not enough to sustain multiple hub rounds, right? So you might keep one. Now, you look at what happened after COVID. Helena has struggled. They're 20% below, right. 30% below they were prior to COVID because of that sucking into these bigger airports. It was about 8 years ago. I think it was a Bozeman Airport Board member said his vision was in the future there's going to be 2 airports in Montana. He didn't say which ones, but I don't think
I think Bozeman's one of them.
Well, I would imagine. And so they're putting that plan into motion in a sense, right? We're seeing that. With that consolidation. And so that isn't great for a community like this. Imagine what it would be like if we had no air service or if we only had a couple flights a day. That's not great. We've got to consolidate and reinvigorate the market by adding in some ultra low cost service to help diversify things and get the market moving again, get off this flat line we've been on for 30 years.
Okay. Any other questions come through?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay, so I just have two more questions for you. So if I'm a business, and I think most of our businesses that travel, I mean, almost everyone in the town will travel, and especially businesses. I mean, D.A. Davidson does a lot of travel. How do I get involved? How, besides encouraging my employees, my family, myself, to fly locally when possible, because sometimes it's not possible,
Yeah,
just
for
because
sure.
of connections. How else can we get involved?
So the Chamber has the ultra low cost carrier funds. Airports aren't allowed to hold those. It's got to be a community initiative. So we partner with the Chamber. You guys have the funds, and consider a contribution to it. We're about $300,000 short right now. As you know, you and I spoke to an airline last year. They said, look, if you were kind of at this level, we really think you'd be a possibility even in 26. And so we're trying to get to that level, and we're about 300,000 shy. So, consider a contribution to it. I know it seems like a challenging idea, but it's important. And when you think about what the impact of Frontier was, that was the first Chamber initiative brought Frontier here.
Okay.
And then we used those funds because Frontier never needed them. They were always profitable. So we used those funds to get United service to Chicago, which we still have. And so, those funds have been used to expand the market. But when Frontier came in, the average ticket price that year dropped $14 per ticket. It actually fell below the national average ticket price. And I think that's the first time Montana has had any airport below the national average ticket price in the last 30 years, really. Wow. And so we dropped below that $14 when you think about 180,000 tickets. That year we ran 190,000 passengers. When you think of that multiplication, it's a multiplier effect. So a small contribution can reap huge rewards in the community in terms of lower airfare. And so that's really the multiplier effect we're looking for. So a small contribution to the low-cost air service fund really helps. And not only is it the money, it's the number of people. The airline wants to see, oh, look, this is a broadly accepted
Supported
initiative
community.
in our community. And so they want to see there's 80, 90 donors in there. That helps, right? And then the other thing is encourage growth, right? I mean, you look at where we are right now with that locked population since 1970. Air tickets are a retail good, just like any other one, right? I mean, we get a new store here, it closes one in the mall, right? I mean, we've got to grow. We've got to get some community growth, population growth. When we're bringing new workforce people to our community, they rely on air service to get back where they came from. I'm from Ohio. I want to go home, right? And so for us to be attractive, to get that workforce, we've got to have good air service, and we've got to encourage growth. We've got to find a way to get 10, 20% more people in our community to support the retail goods, including airfare, that we have now.
So we need to recruit our out-of-state family to move to Great Falls.
Absolutely. My sister lives here now.
Perfect. That's perfect. And so yes, we have that in our foundation, at the Great Falls Chamber Foundation, and that money currently just is earning interest as we await an airline to utilize it. So just so I can clarify, we bring in an airline, they only utilize those dollars based on the agreement if they don't meet the goal that is established, right?
Right. So we sit down with them. We actually negotiate an air service agreement. We had one with Frontier. We had one with United. They go year by year.
So we're not just paying them to come.
No.
It's just a guarantee.
No, it's year by year, and they actually give us the performance statistics. Those are verifiable. They give us the performance statistics on the route, and they say, look, we were close. We were a couple $100,000 short this year in the first year. So we make that whole. And then hopefully that route progresses. And that's kind of what we see, when we've had this program is, they, within 3 years, they're going to be profitable if it's the right market. And we're only really looking for those strong markets. They have good analysts. They're all smart MBA guys. When we sit down with them and say, our community is confident we're going to support this, they look at the numbers and it's going to be a worked out agreement between the two of us. We're going to both agree this route has a good chance of success, or they won't do it.
Okay. So if someone has any interest, wants any further discussion, how do they get a hold of you?
They can call me up at the airport, or you can just email me. My email is real simple. It's just johnjohn@flygtf.com. So get in contact with me. I'm happy to answer any questions. I think we're going to work out a way to post some of the stats that we kind of talked about today so that people can kind of see the numbers for themselves. I mean, we're an open book. We want to see Great Falls succeed. We're a huge promoter of Great Falls. Air service is important to the community, and we want to grow together. I mean, we definitely want this to be a community effort.
Perfect. Well, thank you, and thank you to Benefis for your sponsorship today. Benefis Health System plays a key role in Cascade County's economy as the largest employer, and that is committed to workforce as it is to its patients. So thank you again, Benefis. John, once again, thank you. If you want any more information about how you can donate, you can reach us at the chamber here, or drop us an email, and visit our website at greatfallschamber.org. greatfallsareachamber.org. I always forget the area, whole area. So any other questions come through?
Nope.
We're all good? All right, John, thank you so much. Thank you for